Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the, excuse me, I'd like to call the March 16th Bruce County Highways Committee to order and welcome everyone that's joining us through live streaming. The first order of business on the agenda is, of course, to remind everyone it's our own responsibility to close any pecuniary interest that we may have on today's agenda. And if it's okay, the next item we're going to jump right down to items 4C, and Brian will make an introduction.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our new Manager of Public Works, Jerry Hahn. Jerry's has been in the area for a number of years, has vast experience in civil work, roads, bridges, infrastructure, and Jerry's been with us since December. And we're thrilled to have him with us. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, Jerry, and look forward to working more with you.
Yeah. I had mentioned to Jerry that we weren't expecting him to have big dialogue and an introduction speech. So we did not provide for that, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's fine with me, Brian. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, later date then. So we'll go back to action items 2A, Brian, sign retroreflectivity attachment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Yes, we've got a report before you dealing with the requirement for us to review our regulatory and warning signs to ensure that they're reflective. So the report identifies that we're in a great place when it comes to our colleague department, the GIS managers in planning and economic development, and we've got a system in place. We're preparing a system to be able to manage the retroreflectivity of signs in-house as opposed to go out to a consultant as we originally had budgeted. Consequently, Mr. Chairman, we wish to move ahead with the purchase of a device, a Road Vista 922 reflectometer. And consequently, our recommendation is such that we move money around in a very minor sense to allow for that purchase. We've got about $31,000 in miscellaneous equipment, of which we'll apply $5,000 to, and the balance will come as identified in the report.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'll read the recommendation, then we can have a discussion if you want. The recommendation is that a single source purchase of a Road Vista 922 sign reflectometer from Advantage Specialists in the amount of approximately $15,000 be approved, and that $10,000 from the 2017 sign maintenance budget be transferred to capital equipment operational activity to cover the cost of the Road Vista 922. Any discussion on the motion? I think it's a good move, Brian. Anytime you can get around not bothering with a consultant or an engineer, it's a good investment, the way I see it. But, any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? That's carried, Brian. We're on to items.
We're being reminded, Mr. Chairman, I think there's some fundamentals here we've overlooked, perhaps, Darlene?
Oh, jeepers creepers, yeah, that's a good idea. Do we have a mover for that motion? Moved by Mike, second by Bob. Any other discussion on the motion? Well, we voted on it. We'll vote again. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you again, Brian. On to items 2B, single tandem truck purchase attached, 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two reports, B being the truck and C being the box and plow. On item number B, the truck, we have had great success with these DD13 engines. As you can see in the report, we've got a variety of trucks with the engine in. They proved well. They're sound engines, and we're getting good fuel economy with them. For a variety of reasons, most of which are identified in the report, we'd like to tender with the spec that we have that DD13 engine in the truck. Naturally, you ask is what does that offer in terms of suppliers? Both Western Star and a Freightliner truck would qualify for having a DD13 engine in it.
Okay, I'll read the motion. I'll read the motion then. The recommendation is that the tender for a 2017 tandem truck with a specification that the truck be supplied with a Detroit DD13 engine be approved. Do I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Wolf, seconded by Milt. Any discussion on the motion? Bob?
I think this is a very good idea. With some of the other engines, they've been having a tremendous amount of problems and a lot of breakdowns with the emission controls. And they do have a very good system here for that. So I agree with this 100%. This is a very good idea.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Yes, this unit does come with DEF on it. I know that the equipment the fellows have for diagnostics is basically that emission review. So yeah, they've worked well for us. We've had one or two, as Bob suggests, that have not worked as well. So that's why we're really keen on moving ahead with the DD13 engine.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, then all in favor of the motion? Those opposed? And that's carried. We can go right into 2C, which is the tandem box and the plow, which I think is pretty much self-explanatory. I'll read the recommendation there that the preferred vendor for the supply and installation of the tandem box unit and snowplow equipment on the budgeted new tandem trucks be Viking Chives. The preferred vendor status will be re-examined in 3 years. Any discussion on that motion? I guess a mover for the motion, moved by Dan, seconder Mike. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? That's carried. Correspondence 3A is here for noted and filed. Brian, do you want to say anything about it, or just leave her noted and filed?
Actually, it was referred to both ourselves and planning. Our team have looked at it, and we're aware of where they're putting in this, or potentially putting in this tower, and we feel that it is more of a planning matter than a highways matter.
Okay. Any other one have any questions or comments on that? Okay, the exploring that correspondence is noted and filed. So we're on to 4A, Bridge and Culvert Capital McCurdy Bridge attached. Brian.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was hoping that this report would stand, and this afternoon we would tender for the McCurdy Bridge replacement. We have bumped into the odd area requiring further attention. There is some permits we require from both the federal government and the provincial government, and we are just checking to see if we would receive them by July 15th. So prior to putting the tender out, we'd like to get an improved level of comfort that those permits would be available to allow the contractor in the water. So we will know more early next week whether we can go ahead or not for a spring tender. We have discussed the fallback position, and we may be considering a fall tender if we find that the success rate of having those permits by July 15th is not optimistic before we tender.
Well, that's crazy, isn't it? So if you get word next week that we can get the permits by July the 15th, then you're off to tender? Or does it need to come back here?
Well, I guess I had been optimistic that we were going to be in a good place to tender very soon. There have been some added complications to the permit process for the species at risk. So we're sort of navigating our way through that. And next week we will not have a commitment that we will get the permits. We will have a better understanding if there's the likelihood of getting them. So I think we have to assess the likelihood of getting them and then move from there.
Okay, well, keep us tuned then on that. I guess that's all we can do today, eh, Brian?
Because, yes, we did have tentative delegations before your council and Brockton Council at the end of April, preparing an award for early May. So we've got sort of the ducks aligned, but this other little duck has come up that we're going to have to work on and better understand and assess how we stand next week.
Okay. 4B is a similar issue, Brian? 4B, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund.
Mr. Chairman, if you recall that in the fall, we made application for the McCurdy Bridge, actually, for OCIF 2016. We received back in mid-February that we were unsuccessful. We did have the chance at the OGRA convention to go to the territories room where they had the discussion on the OCIF application-based funding, and I think we were there with about 150 other people. There was some questions asked about who got funding, and I was kind of surprised that there were someone who actually acknowledged that they did get funding and they had gone to that meeting. So I was a bit surprised at that. I am hearing that the 2017 application-based OCIF funding is going to have more funds, and we're told that there will be less potential applicants. I suppose those are the ones that were successful in the 2016 round. But I'm from my knowledge, I don't know if many in Bruce County were successful.
So could you apply for those funds if the project didn't go to tender? Like, can you have gone to tender and can you apply for those funds to a project that's gone to tender and you've awarded, but haven't started?
Well, we had waited until we understood what was going on with OCIF before we moved ahead with this possible tender for the bridge. That's a good point. I'm not exactly sure. I thought that if we had a positive result in mid-February, we would be in a position where we could tender for a late April award. But I'm not 100% sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is not something that they would typically approve, that if the community tendered and awarded the tender, it usually would not fall under the OCIF grouping.
Well, the point being, if there's going to be a delay in getting the permits, maybe we have a chance to apply again for it. So maybe this thing is unfortunately going to have to be delayed.
Yes, so I'm hopeful that we had positioned ourselves appropriately, that an April award, a tender award on a February announcement would have qualified the bridge.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that regard you'll be fine, but in terms of awarding the contract for the tender, so once you've approved the tender, it would be really difficult for OCIF to approve it.
Yes, yeah, I see. So for apparently the 2017 OCIF is coming out. Yes, I'm not clear, and I don't know if many are clear on what's considered a good application and what's a not so good application. I'm hearing a lot of people are being approached that they've got strong applications, yet we're just unsuccessful.
Bob, then Mike.
We had applied for the top-up for a project in Malmö, and we got turned down, and they said that later on this spring it'll be opened up again, and that our report was very good, and there's a very good likelihood that we could achieve what we want. But apparently there's going to be twice as much money available on this next session than there was this last one. And the last one, wasn't it 264 people that applied and only 55 got funding?
That's right, there was 255, 260 applications, and 20%.
Yeah, but we were turned down, but told to reapply, that we stand a good chance of getting it for next year, for our project, okay?
I think doesn't it allow you to apply and build capital to, you could apply to the same program twice and get awarded twice. So I mean, if we applied next year in 2017 and you were building it, you could apply again if it was a 2-year project and the subsequent year. So it's not a one-time application.
Yes.
I think it is. So you can, I think it even says you can start to build that as a reserve. Like you don't even have to start the project. You could apply for it, keep it in a reserve until you did do the project, apply again for the second year and build that reserve. But if there's only, 55 out of 260 isn't really too good odds.
The understanding I have on that is the OCIF fund that you get, you can build that up in reserves. But the top up, you have to use that fairly quickly. That is what my understanding is of the top up, that you have to use it. But you could take your OCIF fund that you get and you could build it up over years to do a big project. That's my understanding.
Anything else? Anything else on that, Brian?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Just to recall that we hope to meet in the Wyerton Planning Office for the next meeting in April, and then move north to Lion's Head for lunch.
Excellent. So with that, the next meeting then, as Brian has stated, is going to be in Wyerton on April the 20th. And nothing further from anyone. We'll entertain sorry, Bob, did you have something, or was that a motion to adjourn? Go
Well,
ahead.
just a quick question. We always have our super fish meal at the end. Are we getting that this year too?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, it wasn't in the program, and I was just wondering.
Yes. I'm hopeful that committee will be interested in the program in the afternoon, and that will be followed by fish supper, yes.
Okay, anything further? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Robert, second by Dan. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.